Oh, we're good now. We will now reconvene the open session of the meeting at 1:01 PM. There is no report from closed session. We'll move on to 8.1 in the agenda, which is a presentation from Chris Calloway from the City of Peterborough with regards to Social Services Division update. Chris, over to you. All right, Joe, I didn't mention you there. No disrespect, but Joe Crooks will also be presenting today from as the manager of housing. Thank you both for being here.
He trained me, but I didn't listen. Mayor and Council, appreciate the opportunity to come and provide an update, a social services division update, joined by Joe Crooks, our housing manager, and also Laura Martin, case manager that's working out of Cavan Monaghan starting weeks ago, I think, not physically, but in our office, getting things set up. So social services division covers Ontario Works, housing, homelessness, children's services, and community development. Be going through each of those sections as quickly as can as a high-level presentation. Joe and I will do a little bit of a tag team for that. Next slide, please. So with Ontario Works, social assistance rates have remained very low for a long time, given the way the cost of living has gone. An individual on Ontario Works receives $733 a month to survive. A couple receive $1,136, with a couple with two children, $1,250. Our case managers, Laura being one of them, work to help stabilize people's lives who are struggling in poverty and to try to move them along through pre-employment and through employment services if possible. About 53% of the adults receiving social assistance declare mental health and or addictions as a serious impediment to them moving on to any sort of employment or employment readiness. There just aren't enough supports in our community. Approximately 14% of our caseloads do have earnings, the way that they're able to try to supplement to survive with around $700 to $800 in monthly income. Next slide, please. This chart shows the caseload that we're working on. It has been on a slight increase. That line is very steep. It's a few hundred people. The slight increase has been experienced in the county with a slight decline slight decline in the city, while the growth has been in the county. Previous 2022 was an opposite trend to that. Next slide, please. This just gives a breakdown. Each township at a point in time, this is back in June of last year, as to which each municipality and the caseloads on Ontario Works, with Cavan Monaghan at the time being 77 clients. Turn it over to Joe now, the next slide, for housing and homelessness.
All right, thank you for having me. My name is Joe Crooks. As Chris said, I've just started with the housing department about 2 months ago. So I'm the new housing manager of the city and diving into it, that's for sure. So we're a small team. There's 3 of us on the team, myself, two specialists on a permanent basis, and then we're supported throughout different divisions with finance and things like that with it internally. So we are the service system manager for housing for the area. We manage the community housing providers. There's 15 current providers spread throughout the city and the county. We manage a centralized wait list for when units become available within the supporting housing. We have a pretty robust rent supplement program right now that's offering not just a permanent, but we're moving towards a lot of temporary to help people out of short term up to 6 months sort of situations. So that's been expanding in the last year, but seems very, I don't know what's the right word. Sorry, it's going quite well in the sense of it's helping people through difficult 6 months short stints. They've lost their jobs, things like that, while they can maintain their housing, and that's the whole goal of that. We also have our 10-year housing and homelessness plan coming up. With that, we'll be engaging with the members today to hear your needs and what your expectations are from myself and my department over the next 10 years. So next slide, please. So in terms of the housing continuum, the housing team starts at transitional housing and goes to affordable rentals. So the model here shows the range of housing options based on income and the forms of housing. So the transitional housing team provides incentives for sort of partnerships with developers, landlords in the markets. Supportive housing would be considered RGI and or affordable where supports are provided along with the housing, usually by healthcare providers or a mixed. Our rent geared to income portfolios would be our rather largest within it. We oversee 14 nonprofit housing providers as well as Peterborough Housing Corp within that section. And then the affordable renting is we manage a wait list of 11 different affordable housing builders and providers. So under the Housing Services Act, sort of what is a service manager? So the city of Peterborough is a service manager for housing and homelessness for the province within our region. So it means we have a legislative obligation under the act to provide affordable housing units to individuals and families while maintaining a minimum of 1,569 prescribed rent secured income units in the city and the county. And as you may have heard of the end of mortgages that are occurring across the province. So as the end of mortgage comes, we have over 2,000 that we manage right now, but we can't go below 1,569. And as the province stops funding the social housing providers, we have to find the right mix for the providers to be profitable on their own without the provincial funding. And so that number will drop over the next couple of years as we negotiate those contracts. It's the only way to manage it without asking for more tax base funding. So this list here, sorry, is a list of all the social housing units within the county. Yeah, next slide, please. Homelessness. So homelessness team and the housing team are connected. We share the same floor, but it is definitely separate work and a little different, that's for sure. Along the continuum, the model that describes where housing support starts, this is where homelessness starts with homeless people on the streets. So we have workers that are going out, getting to know them, getting them on wait lists, getting them the right referrals, making sure that they're connected in. We manage multiple emergency shelters, and then we've been working with providers to increase transitional housing over the last few years as well. So our responsibility as the system service manager is to provide options for people experiencing homelessness. It's definitely, as you're aware, been a more political issue over the last few years and something that continually grows, and so does the city's response. Most recently, they added 3 service navigators, caseworkers specifically focusing on connecting with people that are homeless so that we can help them connect with the right referrals and the right services. So next slide, please. So within homelessness data, there were 937 individuals experienced homelessness for at least one day last year that was recorded. 462 individuals experienced chronic homelessness and 396 experienced homelessness for the first time. 269 moved from homelessness to housing, which is wonderful. But in terms of 937, it's clearly still not enough. There's just not enough resources out there and housing options out there to secure everyone properly. 196 individuals were homeless, who were homeless identified as Indigenous. So when we break this data down a little bit more, we see that the majority are male individuals. There's a lot of singles compared to families. There are specific resources designed specifically for helping families versus singles. There's separated out programs. And then the general age is between 25 and 49 years old. So within homelessness resources, we've been focusing a lot of our programs around prevention and diversion, which is the Housing Stability Fund. So we ensure everyone that works at social services is aware of this fund. And this is really focusing around eviction prevention. So there were 1,458 issuances of it to around 1,000 people over the last year. And that's generally for back rent, back utilities, The whole focus is around maintaining where the person is living at the moment. So HSF is generally used to support people to stay where they are, maintain and stable their housing. And then there's the rent supplements program, run under the housing team, which is again, limited time assistance to stabilize housing, divert individuals. A lot of our resources over the last year have really started to shift our focus to eviction prevention because, even though there may be a back rent or back utility, it's harder to find a new place than it is to maintain the current. So we've been seeing that in our numbers, and we've been adjusting our supports. So within our emergency shelter system, we have the Brock mission of Cameron House, Yes Shelter for youth and families, and then the Trinity has 45 beds as well.
All right, for children's services, with the introduction of the Canada-wide early learning childcare or CWELC back in January, it has resulted in a maximum base fee of $22 per day for eligible children as of January 1st. This funding has, helped significantly in the childcare sector, and but we currently have almost 4,000 unique children on the wait list, 3,200 in the city and just over 700 in the county. There's some work being done to quality control that because you can be on many wait lists at one time. And while it says unique children, it's something that needs to be double checked and cleaned up on a regular basis. Next slide, please. The Ministry of Education moved to a new model of funding. The revenue replacement model was replaced with a base funding for eligible expenses. So it really changed the way centers operated from a shoestring trying to, do as much as they could with so little to a much more stable funding model. Also having access to a local priorities fund, which supports children age 6 to 12 and also the early educator workforce. So this agreement expires at the end of this year. So work is being done now to ensure the funding continues. Next slide, please. With the early on centers as being a free family programs, they've had no significant change in their funding since 2019. With costs rising, this is really putting challenges on these centers. And without new funding, they're going to be making some, rationalizing their services as well, given the financial challenges that they're experiencing. Next slide, please. So on the community development side, prior to the pandemic, we had a case manager working at the Old Millbrook School 3 days a week. We had case managers across the county. During the pandemic, we changed our model where all of our case managers saw any kind of client, whether it was a county client, a family, someone who's homeless, someone with addictions, it didn't matter. But we've moved back to some specializations. And as we were doing that, we established county hubs, 9 locations across the county, the Old Millbrook School being one of them on the second floor, where any agency could book space to see clients, to do rural outreach. The uptake of that program in some places, in Millbrook, one of them, hasn't been very high. There's some new developments. There might be more uptake coming soon, but Havelock, Norwood, Lakefield have been more heavily used for these, all agency kind of access. We have drop-in centers in Havelock, Norwood, and Apsley, where we have staff 1 day a week in each of those locations. We did have someone here in Cavan Monaghan, but the uptake was so low we couldn't justify continuing that. Next slide, please. And as I mentioned with the specialization, Laura has come on. I know the slide says pending, but you can take that off. In those 5 townships, we have dedicated case managers for each of those municipalities. So Laura will be working some of her time out of the Old Millbrook School, seeing clients who have transportation issues, or it's easier for them to stay local. And for Age Friendly Peterborough, we recently hired a new Age Friendly coordinator, started back in November. Sarah Bass, I dropped off on your desks most print version of our directory, realizing that it's out of date once you print it. But it's an important medium for seniors to have things in print, and that's where the demand is for people needing those services. And the community safety and well-being plan, well, we know the townships, the county are going independent on this, but I had been with 5 of the townships, had some representation. So it's the end of our presentation. Joe and I are happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Thanks for the presentation, both gentlemen. I think just to start things off, so one of the questions I had, because I was around when we had the previous results from the 10-year housing and homelessness plan. I think there was, it was nice to sort of us kicking off point, having a point of reference and some due diligence. But I think it's been a few years, so excuse me if this is inaccurate in any way, but I think one of the concerns about it was that some of the more rural components were more sort of rounded estimations rather than sort of more granular data oriented analysis byproducts. So is that going to be this? Are we going to rectify that when we move forward with this existing plan, or is it going to be kind of a similar process that we're going about that? Because I think, I think we need to, in the discussion that came after the last iteration of the plan was that, data really needs to inform a lot of the decision making that community leaders and individuals and counselors are making when it comes to certain advocacy and things of that nature. And to just be sort of basing it on a rough estimation, which looks like all the data sort of needs to be a bit equitable from an investment standpoint, because through the county we're partners in social services with the city being the service provider in this regard. So I think it's important that those areas that if we're intending to use that data for guiding our principles moving forward to address some of the acuity issues in the community, we kind of need them to be based on fact instead of rough estimations or rounding. So maybe you can provide some clarity on that.
So Chair, thank you for that question. So my previous job, I was the quality assurance and operations manager, where all I did for a living is audits and reviews, and data is the only thing I really rely on versus opinions. So we're taking a different approach with this renewal or this revamp of the plan. The last goals I would say were, well, it was to end homelessness by 2025. So let's just say that I'd like to set more realistic goals because we can't end homelessness by 2035. We know that. And yes, data driven. So we've hired a company called Help Seeker, who has a provincial contract, is working under AMO. They hold all the data for basically the entire province. And instead of hiring a consultant and using our money with that, we're using our money to invest in proper data analytics for this year's report. So the consultation portions of our plan will be done through myself and my team, because we spent our money on better data this time.
Thanks. Questions, Deputy Mayor Huntley?
Through you, Chair. Thank you again for your report. Good to see you again, Chris. Within the case loads around the county, you have Kevin Monaghan it was 77 in June of 2025. Do you have any information on the trend? Like that's again a point in time number. Do we know whether that's growing up, going down? Is it holding flat? Any indication there?
Through the chair, at the point in time, you're correct. It's a very challenging thing to measure. That's why the other chart shows the trend is in the county slightly increasing, but individual municipalities, we haven't trended that analysis over the years. The percentage has roughly been 17-19% of our caseload has been in the county. And it's stayed like that relatively, at least for the 14 years I've been here, and doing these presentations and coming to the townships, giving these delegations. So it fluctuates over time. It changes at Christmas time. It changes over the summer. And we can look into some more accurate trends for Kevin Monaghan if you'd like. It just looking into the data a little more carefully and in a different way. If you'd like that, we can provide that.
Yeah, and if Laura had been here for more than a few weeks, we would maybe pose that question to her and her experience of what she's seeing, but I think we'll give you maybe another year before we get to hold you to the coals for those sorts of data points, but thank you for that. Councilor Byrne.
Through the chair, I got a few questions, but to this chart that's up there right now, doesn't really tell me a lot. I don't know the populations of those townships. I don't know when the data was collected. I don't know how current it is for actual population or demographics. Some of that would be useful to know. The one thing I was looking at though, when it talks about caseloads, that other chart, and I don't know the backside of that one. The graph looks like it spikes quite quickly, but the other columns look like they stay fairly consistent. And that throws me off. I don't know what that case line is supposed to be.
Through the chair, yeah, the red line is number of clients, which is the axis on the far right. So it went from around, 3,100 up to about 35, a little bit over 3,500 clients. So going up 500 clients over that period of time isn't a significant change, even though the line looks pretty steep because the baseline is 2,900 at the bottom. With the particulars about the makeup of the caseload, I had the same question. I believe it, I can't remember which township it was right now, but I can provide that breakdown based on things like how many individuals, families, that sort of how long people have been on the caseload here locally. So I'm happy to provide more detailed breakdown on the nature of the caseload here in Cavan Monaghan.
Yeah, I think that's what, I think a lot of us are looking for, a better understanding of the sort of high level of data that you provided. And, it sounds as though that there's an understanding of that, Chris. So if you can send that, anything that you have in your disposal to send to staff and they can circulate to the members of council for our own information, then I think it can be beneficial. So we'll look for that, look forward for that for further clarity. Did you have another question, Councilor Byrne? Follow up with you and then I'll go to Councilor Natchell.
Through the chair, the other thing I was going to ask, and everybody keeps changing the definitions over my lifetime. Subtle little changes that manipulate the numbers, that changes the emphasis. We now have to be 25 to be an adult. When did that happen? I still grew up in a time where at 18, you got out of the house, you started to be an adult, you got a job, you tried to put back something, and now you can be up to 24.99. Like, I don't get that. When did that happen? That you're still considered youth rather than adult?
Through the chair, I don't disagree, but we don't set the parameters within that's from the province as defines the parameters of tracking. So the numbers in our report today are numbers that we report up to the province on a regular basis, but I understand what you're saying, sir.
Through the chair to you. So that's my issue. That these people, this progressive bureaucracy changes the definition, which changes the whole meaning of the thing. Because when I look at this and say, oh, this big number of youth, it's really not youth. They've just made it look important because they took the emphasis off of being an adult. Like, you're no longer considered you can go to war at 18, but somehow you can stay at home and claim homelessness and get handouts. I have a problem with that. And I know it's not your issue, but that becomes the crux of the argument. Now, I was looking for another page here. You were talking about facilities, and I can't find it right now, but it had subtotals 900 and something in all the different categories. But when I totaled it up, it come up to over 1,300. And I didn't know where I was missing the point. I figured some of them must have been fall into more than one category, or I read it wrong. I don't know which. And I apologize. I don't have it in front of me right here.
Through the chair, it was the homelessness data. Yes, those circle charts, there is overlap in those, and that's why the percentages, there's some gaps and there's some overlap, but that's the reason for the discrepancy.
Councilor Natchell.
Thank you through you Thank you for coming today and thanks for the presentations. I just have a couple of questions. So first one is, or guess it can be, we'll make the first one. Can you give me a couple of examples of any kind of like new builds or development that is meeting, facilitating people and homelessness? Like I'm just asked the counselor beside me here, or the deputy mayor, beside Kenner, they had built that 5-story new building. Is that geared to income? Is that an example of something that's catered to trying to help with that? And then the next block or 2 blocks north of there is a indigenous building. Is that one of those examples? And then the next question I had here was with the homeless data, you had 396 individuals that became homeless for the first time. Can you give me maybe like 2 or 3 examples of why it was that these people, was it loss of employment? Was it like, what was the attributing factor that you were seeing first time people going in? Maybe not as much for myself, because I do have quite a bit of experience from my time in the city with this, but maybe you can kind of glean a little more information for other people.
To the chair, I'll do my best to answer your questions, of course. So we're working right now through a proposal to build Canada Homes. That's the new funding request and we're trying to put through a portfolio request for multi-sites. Build Canada Homes is still very new, as I'm sure aware. If not, it's still very new. We've sat on some webinars. We've reached out to the province. They've just hired one person recently to work in all of Ontario under Build Canada Homes. So every submission that's been open for the last few weeks is going to one individual at the ministry. So we're not expecting to be receiving funding from Build Canada Homes in the next couple of months. That's for sure. We don't have funding to build apartments on our own, which is a bit of why we started to try transfer buildings over to what's being called the Municipal Services Corp in an attempt to build the debt equity so that we can keep building. The apartment building you're referencing on Monaghan, I think 13 of the, I want to say 40 or 52 units are affordable. And so that's the new structure that we're doing. We're working with a lot of private developers where we'll be subsidizing maybe 10 units within that building of a 50 or 100 building apartment. And that's how we're building without the province actually coming in and subsidizing the build. So that seems to be the cleanest approach forward. So one of the specialists that works under me, her entire job is dedicated to connecting with private developers and trying to use municipal incentives to get some units within their builds, whether that be a tax break or renovation program. There's a handful of programs. Sorry, if you could repeat your last question, sorry.
With regards to or some of the catalysts for individuals who are experiencing homelessness for the first time.
Through the chair, thank you, sorry. As I'm in housing since December 1st, I honestly, I can't answer that wholesomely of what the reason for those each individual are, but when I go back, I can get many examples and have it sent over if that's helpful, sir.
Yeah, and in regards to a lot of the components, sorry, and I'll go to you next, Councilor Burke. A lot of the components serving on Peterborough Housing Board representing the county, there's a lot of evolution going on with regards to now with the nuance being that Ontario is the only province and territory where this is a municipal responsibility. It's been downloaded from the province, and in addition to downloading from the province, what you're finding now serving on that board is, you mentioned about the mortgages renewing. Well, there's financing with regards to the existing inventory, and that existing inventory is getting into the 50, 40, 30, 60-year-old status. So there's lots of structural issues with those facilities as well that require significant renovations and significant monies, and there's not a lot of retrofitting or refurbishing funds. There's some new avenues for funding with regards to new builds, but there's a lot associated with even shovel-ready projects and things of that nature. So I know Peterborough Housing Corp, and I can speak more about that, is really pivoting to try to, put more of the eggs in the shovel-ready basket, because there seemingly be more opportunities for funding to support that. But then, I mean, this is one of those ones where the city doesn't benefit from being the provider because there's a lot of capital from the city of Peterborough that actually has to go into facilitating a lot of these projects. But one of the things that we are pushing now that the Peterborough Housing Corp strategic plan has just been updated is a refocusing that there needs to be more outward looking from the urban boundary of the city into the county. Being a 55% funder of Peterborough Housing Corp, that there needs to be more units. Like there are no Peterborough Housing Corp units in the township of Capmonaghan, for example. And that's true of some other municipalities as well. But the reality is there is a lot of existing archaic homes that are being operated by Peterborough Housing Corp that are, you know, not optimally using space, that are also needing significant and annual refurbishment. So there's not enough money to chase the need. And unfortunately, the reality is that is being passed on to the property taxpayer at the municipal level. And it really shouldn't be, and it isn't in any other province or territory in the country. And there's been very insignificant or less than sufficient offsetting funding for that reality, unfortunately. So it's an issue moving forward, but you know, it's not an easy job that either of you or the three of you, either of them have. So I commend you for sticking to it. And Chris, I know you've been familiar for a long time in the work, so it's important work that you're all doing, and it's a lot of uphill climbing. So we appreciate that. Councilor Byrne, to your question.
Through the chair. So back to definitions and stuff. I've listed this crap about affordable. They went to appropriate, they went to attainable. I think it's basically taxpayer subsidized homes, what we're actually talking about. And some of the other definitions on the first handout there in Ontario Works, you talk about coming off the applications, the word termination. I didn't know what that meant. And then later on the same page, it talks about closed. I don't know if you're talking about deaths or how you get off that. Ontario Works is what I'm thinking of.
Through the chair, they referred to the same thing. You're correct. Determination of a case if someone gets employed or if they go on ODSP or they move on from Ontario Works. It's the file's terminated or it can be closed. It's the same thing unless I'm wrong there.
Councilor Nacha?
Thank you through you, Chair. Two questions again for you here. Are any of the, I guess, units that are being redeveloped in East City, like the huge building at the top of the hill? I'm not entirely certain what the business used to be at one time. I think it might have been like the hospital. Okay. If any of those units, as you said, the prior one, the other building beside Kenner, 10 units or a percentage of them, are any in that build in the same circumstances? And then my follow-up next question, 2 years ago when I attended the conference in AMO in Ottawa, they had done a pilot project in Gatineau where they had refurbished C-cans for homeless people in a 10-block radius of the downtown of that area. I attended the conference a year later. There was no follow-up or any report on that. So I went myself to go to see what was happening there. And I'm just wondering if you were aware of that type of pilot project or other types of similar like projects across Canada that have had some kind of traction, or something that you may have identified where you could go, this may be something that might be a suitable possibility for bringing into the Peterborough community. Thanks.
To the chair, I apologize again. It may just be as I've just started, but I'm not sure. I'm not aware of. I'm aware of the owners of the East City Old Hospital and that, but I'm not sure of any agreements that we have with them. I don't believe any exist, as I have been reviewing them. But and your second question. Sorry, as you put your hand up, I've lost my train of thought. I'm so sorry, sir. Your second question. The C-cans, yes. So City Council has recently approved us to add 16 more modular units at the current location down on Wolf Street. We've been looking through different various types of that. A bit of it, the province has sort of, I shouldn't say waiver, I don't want to mix words, but they've sort of wavered on funding those projects ongoing, as they've said, there's nowhere for them to transition to afterwards. So even in our own community of 50, there's multiple people in there that had there been proper apartments or transitional housing funded, as another province, they could transition to those, and they can't. So they're sort of within them. So when there was a funding proposal a year ago, the province denied our application, saying that we're not really interested in funding those types of builds at the moment. And that's probably why you didn't get a follow-up report a year later, because that message was made clear to us.
Okay, Councilor Byrne, do you have another question?
Through the chair. So on that note, my whole life, we've had subsidized housing in Ontario, the province of. Is there any mechanism yet, even with these modular ones in at Wolf Street, that some candidates just aren't treating them properly and maybe don't deserve to have that allowed to be the case? I've watched all kinds of housing projects over the year look like trash after 2 or 3 years because there doesn't seem to be any process to screen or try to group people that are actually going to have a vested interest in the community to make it move forward rather than just a free ride that they take advantage of.
Through the chair, I would say, so I was actually seconded a couple years ago when we started this project, and I worked down in the encampment, as we called it, for the entire summer. I also was on the committee to start the screening process for applicants. I could tell you that we put some measures together, so it wasn't as though it was open for anyone. There were a number of people that we denied based on not being a fit into the community, and there's been a number of evictions from the community based on behavior and concerns as you're describing. So it is always in flux, obviously, but with the different services that we have sort of going through the hub, the community center within the community, there's a lot of people that have started to find employment, seek medical help, seek mental help, clear their addictions past. So there's a lot more good stories, I would say, than bad that have been coming out of there, and people that have moved in there and generally cause issues have been evicted. So that process continues.
Great. Another question, Councilor Byrne, and then we're going to move on. Okay, we got to get through the rent.
Through the chair, just on a personal note, so one of the suppliers or providers, you call them, is the Manor down here in Millbrook, which is, I think, a great facility. Right at the present, they're having to upgrade the electrical and mechanical stuff because of new regulations coming in for the handicap accessibility, all those rules. Is there anything, I know you're not getting a lot of change in funding, but was there any extra funding from the provincial government that brought down the mandates on the accessibility to compensate the providers to install this equipment so it's not an even bigger burden on them than all the other costs?
Through the chair, no, there was not. There was, if I go through my asset planner database to look at capital building repairs due across the 15 providers, I'm over 55 million right now, and we get about $500,000 a year annually. So we're picking and choosing, putting Band-Aids on top of Band-Aids within these. We did ask the fire department around the carbon monoxide detectors, and then they didn't receive any funding either. So I have been asking.
All right, gentlemen. Well, thank you both for answering all of our questions and providing us some of that insights. And we'll look forward for some further details that have to come. And nice to meet you, Laura, and welcome. And appreciate what you're providing to the community. So thank you, gentlemen, for coming. Cheers. Can I get a motion to receive the update for information? Moved by Councillor Natchoff, seconded by Councillor Byrne. All in favor? That is approved. Next item on the agenda is 9.1 with a delegation. I believe Courtney Lewis, and I think that's the only name present. Oh, Claire as well. Okay, perfect. So welcome to you both, and approach the mic, and you have 10 minutes for your delegation.
Thank you so much. My name is Courtney Lewis, and I am the Pedagogical and Co-Culture Lead at the Compass ELC Millbrook program.
Hi, I am Claire Howcroft, and I am the Administrative and Co-Culture Lead at the Compass ELC Millbrook site school. All All right, so Compass ELC is a charitable not-for-profit organization. We are a purpose-led and value-based organization where children are at the heart of all we do. We stand on these 5 pillars of our vision framework of relationships, collaborative leadership, lifelong learning, stewardship, and kindness. These values drive everything we do in all of our initiatives and caring for children.
We do operate many different programs. We have infant, toddler, preschool, 2 kinder, 2 junior school age, and 2 senior school age aftercare programs, being one of the largest organization or programs in our organization. And we have recently been really thinking about outdoor education for children, and we've been spending a lot of time outside, having children connect to the outdoors. We've also really noticed how this supports children with special rights, neurodivergent children, and children with behaviors, and how this has been so successful. And we want to continue to offer outdoor programming for our children. This is a quote from a Millbrook educator who has been working alongside children in the outdoors. I hope through the relationships that children have built with nature over the summer stick with the children, that they will remember how empowering it was to give back to the forest for all it has given us. The children were so proud and happy to see the positive impact their actions had. We want to continue to support children in knowing that they can have a positive influence on ecosystems. So there are many values for outdoor programming. I noticed that in your agenda, you have land acknowledgement. We always start our days with a land acknowledgement alongside children. We really want them to be a part of the action as we think about Indigenous learnings. We have many different spaces and places that the children love to visit in the outdoors. The Mill Pond is one of them. And we see children creating deep relationships with these spaces. We often think about what kind of world do we want to live in. This is one of our guiding values and pedagogies in our work. And a lot of those pieces are like the children are our future, and we want them to have connections to the environment. We want to live in a world that has an environment. We want to live in a world that is a world.
All right, so our proposal is we are proposing the placement of a small purpose-built shed on municipal property near the Millbrook Valley Trails. This initiative is part of a collaborative funding application designed to and support increased outdoor engagement and nature-based learning throughout all of our community. So some important details. It'll have many functions. It'll have storage and accessibility. It will house materials and equipment used for outdoor education, nature exploration, and play, making it easier to access and use these resources on a regular basis. Weather shelter. It'll have a small sheltered space for children and adults in the event of sudden or severe weather, ensuring safety and continuity in outdoor activities. Rather than needing to cancel, we can offer a backup plan. And community benefit. The shed will support more accessible material for outdoor programs, encouraging greater use of the trails and fostering environmental stewardship and healthy outdoor lifestyle. So again, leading into our values and vision for what type of world we want to live in with children, helping to take down some of those barriers and create more accessible offerings for children and families.
And we are fortunate to have several local businesses already committed to supporting the build. We have a family who are part of Yard Pro, and they're going to contribute their excavation services. We've been in contact with Havelock Metals and Monaghan Lumber. We also are going to continue to reach out to local businesses to support our build.
Yeah, so for timeline, we would appreciate this project being given immediate consideration as the request is for land and not financial support. We obviously know that this is, again, contingent on when the ground defrosts and when things can start moving along, but we're hopeful to have immediate consideration.
So at this stage, the only missing piece is suitable location. We respectfully request municipality support in identifying and approving a site near the old Millbrook School playground that is close to Millbrook Valley Trails as a place for the shed to live and be used by many. With this approval, we can move forward with the build and funding application, bringing this valuable community resource to life. And we are in partnership with the Early On Center.
And then these are some drawings provided by the Timberworks for what the shed would look like. And Claude is also here as well. Thank you for hearing our presentation, and to the Township of Cavan Monaghan for your continued support in these invaluable programs that we're able to offer the residents of Millbrook, Cavan, and the greater Peterborough County. And we appreciate your time. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for coming, and thanks for coming back. Just regards to understanding, because I think there's a bit of confusion. While I can appreciate the simplicity of understanding that, we're looking for a spot to facilitate this, and I think it's good that you've highlighted some of the needs. Yeah, I think from a municipal standpoint, and this is just the world that we are living in, there are a lot of financial implications and things that we need to get an understanding on about this project and in this area, this location, from a planning standpoint, but also from an insurance standpoint. So I think at this point, and while we still have some frozen ground to buy us some time, I think it would make some sense for staff to come back to council with a report on this, and just so that we can understand with clarity, maybe work with yourselves to figure out exactly what the implications are, everything from insurance to ownership to even doing site investigations. I know Chris has been I don't know, I think he's back there, has been a part of sort of walking around trying to identify sites, but when it comes to excavation, people can't just go and excavate because we've identified a parcel. We need to know what's underneath from an infrastructure standpoint, an environmental standpoint, just like any build that goes on in the township. So if council's okay with that, I think the motion would be something very simple, that we just ask staff to work with the proponents in the application and come back and report to council at whenever possible about a fulsome understanding of the project in question. Make that motion, or Councilor Byrne make that motion, moved by Councilor Net. Any questions before we do that? I didn't know. I just think I think we've been here before, but I don't want to suit that. So before we go for those motions, I'll go to the deputy mayor.
Through you, Chair, I guess I'm just a little confused because this did come forward already through Early On. And now it's coming back through Compass, right? Like, what is it? Can we bring this further? I'm just trying to find, why are we here again? I guess is the question.
Even we have struggles with the button, so don't worry about it. I think I'll take a stab at it, and then if we'd like to hear from others. So it's clear that there's sort of a more inclusive and more utilization from the Compass than there was traditionally maybe discussed in that project. So I think now that we have a clearer understanding from a staff perspective of who utilizing it, and we know that there's a lot of local businesses and proponents that want to support it, which is great. I think now that we understand, and we want to get a bit more understanding of exactly how that's going to be managed, how it's going to be booked. Is it a municipal facility that, Chris and his staff might need to oversee in any capacity? So that's, again, kind of the clarity that I think in the report can come back, and then all of those questions can be answered. I want to get to that report because I think they'd like to have the facility sooner than possible. But as Ms. Hurley knows, and I'm sure all the council knows, there's the storage question is an issue that the municipality constantly faces. There's a need for many associations that do great things in the community of all shapes and sizes and all vocations, has an issue with this. And we've been thinking about it in this exclusive endeavor for this specific process, and that's great. But I do think that it's something that we have to consider utilizing any municipal asset. We need to make sure that we can get as much bang for the buck and as much benefit to all groups as possible. It's great that you already have some communications and supports from vendors, and maybe that can piggyback, and maybe it'll be exactly what's been asked for here. But we just need to do a more fulsome municipal understanding of A, the sites in question, but also B, is this the right thing to solve the myriad of problems and issues for the various groups that we're always working and trying to help support? So if that answers your question, I'm hopeful the staff can bring that back as a portion of their report. So mover, Councilor Byrne, seconded by Councilor Natchoff. All in favor of that motion? That is approved. Thank you, ladies, for coming, and we'll look forward to catching up with you later in the spring. Thank you. Next on the agenda today is 10.1, the minutes of the February 2nd meeting. Any issues with the minutes? If not, I'll look for a mover and a seconder to adopt those minutes. I believe it's as presented. It is. Moved by Counselor Byrne, seconded by Counselor Edgerton. All in favor? That is approved. Next, minutes from committees and boards, Sustainability Advisory Committee minutes of September 25th, 2025, approved as presented for those minutes. Moved by Counselor Byrne, seconded by Deputy Mayor Huntley. All in favor? That is approved. Excellent. We've got through the minutes. Now we're on to the reports. 12.1, Clinton and Wayne, the annual MECP drinking water report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, just a brief introduction. Clinton Hiltz is our wastewater compliance coordinator. So I've asked him to attend because he did the majority of the reports that are as attachments and the majority of this report before you. The recommendation before you is that council receives Public Works Report 2026-01, which is our annual MECP drinking water report for information. This is a requirement by the ministry, as you're aware. I think you've seen it on an annual basis. I think just as a note, there's two highlights in the report. One comment relating to the ice storm that we had in the early part of the year in April. And of course, the Dufferin water main break that we had in September. So those are addressed in the report. The details are before you for information.
Anything to add, Clinton, while you're here?
I don't really have much to add to that. Sorry, through the chair. I don't have much to add to that per se, but I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Questions with regards to the report, Counselor Byrne?
Through the chair to whichever wants to reply. The ice storm took a couple days to recover from that power wise. The filtration plant, it has standby power already. It works. We lost pumping, I guess, but that over that 2-day period, the storage facility out back here, the standpipe was enough to compensate every use during those 2-day periods.
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Byrne. So for clarity, when we lost the power, it was at the wells, the well site down on King Street. And so we have backup generators, portable. We have a item on the capital budget for 2026 to put a permanent standby generator. But there was a period where the wells lost power. By the time we got power restored to the wells, we were able to restore water to the community through obviously the wells and the standpipe. The standpipe did have adequate storage to support the community through that time. And the booster station does have a dedicated standby generator.
Yes, through the chair. So that makes me wonder that the day we had the first water leak down in front of the old Millbrook High School, we lost basically, as far as I understand, and I may have this wrong, pretty much everything that was in the storage tank. And I'm just wondering, for that short time frame compared to the ice storm, 2 days, how did we end up with a difference in outcomes?
Through the chair to Councillor Byrne. So were you referring to the water main break versus, okay. And so I think the main difference there is when we lost power to the wells, we were consistently taking water, supplying it to the system and putting it up in the standpipe, which serves as a bit of a reserve, right? We lose power and we are able to feed the community from the standpipe. For the water main break, when the water main break happened, obviously there was a break in the system and the water from the system was allowed to escape. And so when that water escapes, it drastically reduces any water we have in the system, right? Where the power loss event during the ice storm just meant we weren't able to add water to the system. Does that make sense?
Follow up?
Yes, through the chair. So I understand all of that. I'm just wondering how we managed to lose so much water out of the standpipe before it became like, let's shut this off before it goes any farther. Because the actual usage during that period of time when the water break occurred wouldn't have been that great compared to the amount of water that was actually discharged from the standpipe.
Wayne or Glenn?
To Mr. Mayor, Councillor Byrne, first of all, just discussing with Clinton, the issue that happened with the Dufferin water main break was we did not know where the break was for a period of time, and therefore the system actually drained, which was the standpipe. And when we were pumping at that time, it was pumping into the break, and actually so we lost that. That's not in the case with the ice storm. We did not lose the water that we had in the standpipe. So I think, quite frankly, it was the time it took to find out where the water main break was. That was the cause of the water being lost to the standpipe.
Okay, thank you for that, gentlemen. Other questions? No, Councilor Byrne, other questions?
Through the chair, back to Wayne. It mentions in the report about the difference between online data versus the actuals. How does that occur?
Through the chair to Councillor Byrne. So essentially, we have two separate logs where we track water takings, right? We have an online SCADA-based data system. So SCADA is the online system where we control pumps, valves, monitor flows. And anytime water is taken from the wells, this SCADA system will track and log that. We also have a paper log that the operators write in every day just to have that redundancy in our records. So the reason that I believe the SCADA, the online data, is incorrect is when you look at the trends, you can notice some fairly normal patterns, right? You see the wells come on, it will kick on and it fluctuates a little bit and it will turn off. And we have a couple different points where we measure water. We can measure water takings directly from each well, but we also measure water discharged from the plant as a total, right? And so this figure, the online versus the actual, it was very high. So when I saw that point, it caught my attention and I wanted to look into that. What I noticed is on the SCADA trends, we could see that the treated water showed discharge flow when none of the wells were running. So to me, we shouldn't be discharging water if we aren't taking water from the ground. And on top of that, typically when you look at water discharges, it fluctuates, it's never consistent. These lines were flat lines. So to me, that looked like the data was not recorded correctly by the computer. So I referred to back to the paper log for the record.
Interesting. Thanks for that explanation. Councilor Byrne, another question?
Through the chair, this is a little bit off the topic of the report. Is the new dispenser electronics that's upgraded there, is that up and running?
Through the chair to Councilor Byrne, the bulk water station, I assume? Yeah, it's up and running. Everything is going well right now.
Thanks for that, both Clint and Wayne. Any other questions? If not, we're just receiving this for information, and thanks to you both for being here and welcome. Moved by Deputy Mayor Huntley, seconded by Councilor Byrne. All in favor? That is approved. Next is the Integrity Commission Agreement Renewal. Ms. Page.
Thank you, Mayor Graham, to yourself and the rest of council. Before you is Corporate Services Report 2026-02. And staff is just seeking the council recommendation and support. The council authorizes staff to renew the current Integrity Commissioner Services Agreement for an additional 2-year period with the option of the further 2-year extension. As council will see, this is a requirement under the Municipal Act that we have an integrity commissioner. Being where everything is and the fact that there's no retainer, it doesn't make sense to go back out to an RFP. We've had good services with Mr. Fleming. So in consultation with the County of Peterborough, as our mayor and deputy mayor have already seen, we're just looking for a 2-year extension and then we'll reevaluate after the 2 years.
Okay, so this is a legislative requirement, if I'm not mistaken, that this position needs to be. So I think no one's had any issues as far as we're understanding with the provision of service. So look for a mover to move the recommendation of the report. Moved by Deputy Mayor Huntley, seconded by Councilor Nacha. All in favor? That is approved. Next, we have Joint Community Safety and Wellbeing. Mark is going to be presenting today. Welcome, Mark.
For you, Mayor Graham, to council, before you for consideration is Report Corporate Services 2026-03, Joint Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan with Peterborough County municipalities. The recommendations are for the report are the council receive Report Corporate Services 2026-03 Joint Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan with Peterborough County municipalities, and that council directs staff to work with the other Peterborough County municipalities to develop a new joint community safety and well-being plan that aligns with the township's joint plan approved in 2022. As council is probably aware, because I just delivered a report on this about a month and a half ago, the township is obligated under the Community Safety and Policing Act to adopt by resolution and maintain a community safety and well-being plan. And council first adopted theirs in June 2022. as per Ontario Regulation 1423, municipalities are required to review and if appropriate, revise their community safety and well-being plans within 4 years after they are initially approved. For the township, that would mean we would be required to revise our joint plan with the other two municipalities, excuse me, by June 2022. As some of council is aware, at the Peterborough County Council meeting in December 17th, 2025, County Council had a motion directing county staff to work with the lower tier townships to develop a joint community safety well-being plan that aligns with the plan that the township adopted in 2022 alongside the townships of Asphodel, Norwood, and Ontonby, South Monaghan. And they also noted that a 50,000 annual funding that previously went to their plan with the city of Peterborough would be reallocated to joint initiatives to support the new plan. From a township perspective, the county's plan is actually required to be renewed in August 2022. So I think this is good practical timing. And it was the original intent of the township to go forward with a plan with the county of Peterborough and the other 7 municipalities in the county. But because there was some push to meet compliance, we decided to go for a quicker adoption with the 2 other townships that we created our first joint plan with. So it makes sense from a practical standpoint to kind of return to the original plan. We share a number of service providers for the community safety and well-being plan, such as social services and housing that's delivered by Peterborough County. So it makes sense, and it'll be more effective use of staff resources because there's no point for 8 individual townships to do consultations and the required components. We can pool resources to make a better plan. If you have any questions, please, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks for that summary. So if I'm just to reiterate, or maybe it's just for my own clarity, so I understand it correctly. So we have our plan with the other partner municipalities, and this is sort of the county coming back to the table and sort of piggybacking on our plan and integrating it across the county. You mentioned about the renewal horizon. So seeing as, we have our existing renewal period that we need to make to be legislatively compliant with I guess when this gets integrated into one sort of county-wide plan, well, like, are we going to be able to align the renewal period, or are we going to have to keep are we going to be out of sync with the 3 municipalities? Are they going to be out of sync with this deadline, or will it kind of be start anew under what would be a sort of a county-wide safety and well-being plan?
There's a little bit an area of gray in terms of legislation. I can't speak to the timelines. The province is the one that would obviously see compliance, but I think if we had a motion showing council's support and we are working towards the timeline of the county municipalities, I'm sure wouldn't be an issue. I can't really speak to how we'd be with actually making the timelines because we don't have council support as of yet to actually start the planning process, but we would be keeping those 2 deadlines in mind and be working towards them. And I think the process would be more efficient because we've all been through it one time beforehand. And we are conforming to kind of the format of our plan. And I think that will make it a more time efficient process as well.
Okay, thanks for that explanation. I'll go Deputy Mayor and then Councilor Byrne.
Through you, Chair, I know when Peterborough County pulled out doing this with city, it was about a 50K a year that they were putting towards it. Under your financial impact for us, there's 0. Does that mean that the county's covering all of our costs incorporated in this and we have no cost to bear? Or is there something we should be putting aside, or is there amount of time maybe that we should be reflecting that is going into this?
To Deputy Mayor Huntley through the mayor. As of right now, according to the county report, they have no requests for any financial support from the county municipalities, and they have noted they are redirecting their funds. So as of now, we have no knowledge of financial impact, and the previous township plan did not devote any specific finances to the previous plan. So if they are conforming with our plan, I don't perceive any additional costs at this time, but I don't want to speculate anymore.
Ms. Hurley might have something to add on that.
Through you, Chair. Just to clarify, Mark is correct. There's no monies that are being asked at this time, but once all the municipalities are taking this report to see if council supports it. Once everyone does that, there will be time that staff time will be working with a group. There'll be a group that's formed that will work together, but it is staff time only at this time.
Okay, Councilor Byrne, question?
Through the chair to Mark. So on that note, I saw writing in here that it was already an ask for about 50,000 for something else. They wanted to increase it to another 50,000, but then that was rejected somewhere in the paperwork. But what I wanted to ask you right now was on your fast facts sheet. What are we talking about for a total population? Like, I want to kind of understand what these numbers actually mean.
To Councillor Byrne, through the mayor. I don't want to comment specifically about some of the original numbers in the report just because I don't have them off the top of my head and I don't want to. A lot of that is based off data that was used to kind of compile the needs and develop some of the indicators in the original report. There's going to be more information since then, and the regulations do require us to have measurable outcomes, and I do believe that it's important to have good data to understand where we're going and mark the progress of the plan. So that's something I'm concerned with, but I can't speak to anything else. We're going to have some updated census information and other details by then, probably.
Follow up, Councilor Byrne?
Through the chair. Thank you for that. On this other sheet, you have our priorities. It mentions the word vulnerable children. I just wonder what the definition or what falls inside that spectrum. It sounds scary and I don't know what it means.
To you, Councillor, through the mayor, to Councillor Byrne, excuse me. In terms of vulnerable children, it's just one of the areas that's identified in the strategic pillars in the report. Basically, the community safety wellbeing plan is supposed to identify at-risk groups and kind of divert them away from some of the risks, such as homelessness and criminality that might lead to. There is no definition. I'm going to be a little bit of a clerk here and say there's no definitions in the report, and it's just generally understood to be children that are in a vulnerable or precarious situation. That can mean a variety of things that I don't want to rattle off right now. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Other question, Councilor Byrne?
Yes, through the chair. One other thing it mentions under the goals, it was talking about supporting the mental health that somebody donated. We have now 2 glorified motorhomes turned into care centers on wheels. I mentioned a couple 3 years ago about the possibility of using winter storage. I just wondered if there was any follow-up on that or how that program's working.
So, yeah, we provide, I believe you've been provided that there's still no interest and not enough volume for them to locate that service here. We've asked repeatedly and shared that along the way. So there's still no intention for them to locate this service here. But it's nice to meet Laura, who can pick up some of that work on call. So hopefully we can, it's nice to see her, and it's nice we should probably get more information and share that availability of that service in the community, because a lot of people still don't know about it. That being said, so there's 2 recommendations in the report that I will read aloud. That council receive report corporate services 2026-03 joint community safety and wellbeing plan with Peterborough County municipalities, and that council direct staff to work with Peterborough County municipalities to develop a new joint community and safety wellbeing plan that aligns with the township's joint plan approved in 2022. Moved by Deputy Mayor Huntley, seconded by Councilor Natchoff. All in favor? That is approved. Ms. Hurley, report and capital status. Over to you.
Thank you, Chair. The report is before you. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer. As you can see, this is the time that we revise everything. We put in our new report status and we get our capital project status or update based on the approved budget that council just went forward with. So really, we're just starting for this year, but all of our new capital budget items have been identified in there, and we will track and provide further detail, not just tracking, but a little bit more detail on exactly where the projects are, where we're at on them, and what the status is. So here we go again. We're beginning in February 2026.
No, thanks for that. It's nice to see everything already reflected, and we'll look forward to those incremental updates as they go. I think this is getting, I mean, we kind of started this, what was it, 4 years ago or something like that, and it's getting better, I think, It may be 6, yeah, but I think it is getting better from an understanding and that we're utilizing it well, and it's nice to see all those 2026 things in there to see. Questions, Councilor Burn?
Through the chair to the CAO, Tinney property, we're calling it now 3 and 5 or whatever. Is there anything I can tell people when they ask me other than intent to sell?
Through you, Chair, to Councilor Byrne. Sorry,
Like.
on.
Oh, yeah. Your rubber.
Am I good? Okay. Thank you. A little confusing there. Yes. So as directed by council, we're carrying out council's direction on that. So we had to get the property surveyed. That property has just recently taken place. Our next step is because we wanted to have the accessibility or the easement over the property. So that took a little bit of time to do that and have it registered, but we will be listing that property very shortly as directed by council.
Thanks, Ms. Hurley. Deputy Mayor, and then I'll come back to Councilor Burn.
Through you, Chair, I don't want to put Mr. Allison on the spot, but he did give us a great update on the arena demolition. I don't know whether he's prepared to give a quick update to the rest of council while we're here. Saves me doing it in the council reports.
Through you, Mayor, to Deputy Mayor Huntley. The demolition of the arena was completed. I believe it was around December 29th. We do have the topsoil all spread in there. We're just finishing up the final paperwork on it, and we'll be ready to move ahead on the downtown park in 2026.
Thanks, Chris. Councilor Burn, another question? Yep.
Through the chair, I think to maybe Wayne, on the public works up at the operational center, that generator, it seems to be dragging out a long time. I'm just curious what's causing the long delays on getting something there as far as backup generator.
To Mr. Mayor, to Councilor Byrne, the backup generator has been in place and operational for some time up there. So it's a Generac outside the building, and it's been operational since late last year.
Ms. Hurley?
Through you, Chair, to Councilor Byrne. It's stated that it has been completed, and it has been completed, so we identified it. 2026. Okay, so it was 2020, it was the end of 2025. Okay, thank you.
Okay, clarity received. Deputy Mayor? Oh, moving to receive the report and it's followed up and seconded by Councilor Natchop. All in favor? That is approved. Council and committee verbal reports. Any committees met yet in January? I know we have the library board meeting tonight. We did not meet in January. I'll do, you wet the whistle for the task force update, but yeah, the task force did meet, was it last week? Yeah, I think it was last week, to discuss sort of further plans and with regards to the composition and phasing of the various, both the CMCC and the downtown park project as well. So that's continuing to move forward. Yeah, and it was a good meeting. And I have one more. I can't remember what it is. Oh, and just while we're here, I just wanted to thank Chris and his staff and the Legion and the Lions for all of their work and contributing what was a great family day event yesterday. Parking lot was packed and inside was packed too with all the cupcakes and things like that, I think. And I spoke to Mr. Dickinson. He said there was, oh no, it was George. George told me they'd already been through about 120 and they only had so many cupcakes to go. So it was a great success and nice to see those community groups all working together to make a great event for what affected, probably hundreds and hundreds of families in the community. So that was great. Great job by everyone. 300? Yeah. Wow. Great job. If not, we'll see a motion to receive that verbal update moved by Deputy Mayor Huntley, seconded by Councillor Edgerton. All in favor? Those are approved. Moving on, bear with me. There is no general business. There is no correspondence for information. There is no correspondence for action. There are no bylaws for review. Wow, look at us. There is no unfinished business and no notices of motion have been received by me. So the confirming bylaw is bylaw number 2026-06, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the meeting held this February 17th, 2026, be read a first, second, and third time and passed this 17th day of February time by the mayor and the clerk and the corporate seal attached thereto. Can I get a mover for the confirming bylaw? Councillor Byrne, seconded by Councillor Edgerton. All in favor? That is approved. Lastly, motion to adjourn today's meeting. Moved by Deputy Mayor Huntley, seconded by Councillor Edgerton. All in favor? That is approved. There's a number of upcoming meetings and events in the township. As I mentioned, the Public Library Board meeting is tonight at 7 p.m. at the Millbrook Branch. Millbrook Valley Trails Advisory meeting is next scheduled for Monday, February 23rd at 4 p.m. Our next regular council meeting is Monday, March 2nd at 1 p.m. And the Municipal Revitalization and Heritage Advisory Committee is meeting on March 19th. And the Sustainability Advisory Committee is meeting on Thursday, March 26th at 1 p.m. Thanks very much for everyone for tuning in today, and we'll see you around the township. Take care.